Echoes of homecoming. I figured the weekend trip home would be a quick reset. Nothing more than a pit stop to recharge after months of grinding through deadlines and fluorescent-lit offices. 6 months since I'd last set foot in that old house, buried under emails, takeout dinners, and the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. Mom's voice on the phone had that familiar pull, laced with just enough guilt to make me pack a bag without overthinking it. "Come breathe some fresh air, honey," she'd said. "Your room's still waiting." I imagined lazy mornings, her famous apple pie, maybe a walk down the familiar dirt road. Simple, restorative. I wasn't braced for her. For Lena. The screen door creaked as I stepped inside, backpack thumping against my thigh, the scent of pine and faint lavender hitting me like a memory. I expected Mom's hug first, her flour-dusted apron, and that warm, rambling welcome. Instead, a laugh, sharp and teasing, cut through the air. "Well, if it isn't the city boy slumming it back in the sticks." I whipped around, and there she was. Lena. Leaning against the kitchen archway, arms crossed, that signature half-smile tugging at her lips. We hadn't crossed paths in over a year, not since she'd jetted off to that marketing gig in Seattle. Her hair was shorter now, chopped into a no-nonsense bob that framed her sharper cheekbones, and there was a new edge to her stance, confident, unapologetic. The girl I'd known, the one who'd matched me beat for beat in every stupid adventure, had evolved into something fiercer, more magnetic. "Didn't peg you for a holiday crasher," I shot back, dropping my bag by the stairs. She shrugged, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Blame your folks. They roped me in for old time's sake. We used to be thick as thieves. Lena and I, summer bonfires, midnight drives with the windows down, sharing secrets under starlit skies until the world felt too small for just the two of us. Then college scattered us. Me to engineering classes in Boston, her to the West Coast hustle. Texts faded, calls dwindled, and life just happened. Seeing her now was like flipping open a dog-eared book mid-chapter. All the familiar lines jumped out, but the story had new creases. Dinner that night was a whirlwind of nostalgia wrapped in chaos. Mom's roast chicken, Dad's groan-worthy puns about foul play, and Lena across the table, her foot accidentally, maybe, nudging mine under the wood. It should have been easy, a slide back into rhythm. We swapped stories. Her latest client pitch gone hilariously sideways, my botched attempt at urban gardening that ended in scorched herbs. Laughter bubbled up, real and unguarded, but then I'd catch her gaze lingering a beat too long. Not the playful jabs of old, but something quieter, weighted, like she was mapping the changes in me. The broader shoulders from gym sessions I never mentioned, the faint scar on my knuckle from a workshop mishap. I told myself it was the wine, the warmth of the fire crackling in the hearth. But deep down, I knew better. Upstairs, my childhood room hadn't changed, the sagging queen bed with its threadbare quilt. Posters of faded rock bands peeling at the edges, the faint must of old books stacked on the shelf. Across the hall, Lena's door hung ajar, same as always when she visited. Soft indie tunes drifted out, something acoustic and haunting, the kind she'd blast on road trips to drown out our bickering. Her duffel sprawled open on the floor, spilling running shoes and a crumpled hoodie. She'd always been the organized one, but there was a wildness to the mess now, like she'd outgrown tidy boxes. I paused in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light, watching her unpack. She moved with purpose, folding shirts with quick, efficient snaps, but her shoulders carried a subtle tension, like the weight of unspoken miles between us. That night, sleep dodged me like a shadow. The house settled into its creaks and sighs, but my mind replayed fragments. Her laugh at dinner, the brush of her hand when we passed the potatoes. It was stupid, I knew. Lena was Lena, my reckless partner in crime, not some stranger stirring up dust. But time had a way of rewriting edges, sharpening what used to be soft. Around 2 a.m., thirst won out. I padded downstairs in socks, the floorboards groaning underfoot, aiming for a glass of water. The kitchen was dim, moonlight slicing through the blinds, but a sliver of yellow light leaked from the half-open powder room door. I heard the murmur of water, tap running low, then the soft scrape of a glass on the sink. I meant to slip by unnoticed, but curiosity snagged me. Peering in, there she was. Lena, silhouetted against the basin, a damp towel twisted in her hands as she wiped her face. Steam from a late-night face wash clung to the mirror, blurring her reflection into something ethereal. She looked unguarded. Eyes distant, lips parted in quiet thought, as if wrestling with ghosts of her own. The girl who'd once dared me to jump that rickety bridge over Willow Creek now seemed miles away, chasing something intangible. I should have backed off, melted into the dark. Instead, our eyes locked in the fogged glass, hers widening in surprise, mine holding steady a fraction too long. The air thickened, charged with the hush of midnight confessions we weren't ready to voice. No words, just that suspended breath, the past flickering like an old film reel, stolen glances at bonfires, her hand steadying me after a wipeout on the trails. Then, as if a string snapped, she turned fully, towel dropping to her side. I bolted, heart hammering, up the stairs and into my room, easing the door shut with a whisper. "Get a grip, Alex," I muttered to the empty space, collapsing onto the bed. "It's just the house. Just echoes." But as the minutes ticked by, that mirror moment looped endlessly. The vulnerability in her stare, the pull of what we'd left behind. Nostalgia, sure, but laced with a sharper ache, like rediscovering a favorite song and realizing the lyrics had shifted. Dawn cracked the sky too soon, relentless light prying through the blinds like an unwelcome alarm. The aroma of brewing coffee wafted up, mingling with the earthy tang of rain-soaked soil from last night's drizzle. No chatter from below, no sizzle of bacon, just the solitary drip of the pot and the distant trill of birds reclaiming the yard. I dragged myself upright, limbs leaden not from fatigue but from the residue of unrest, that intangible fog clouding my thoughts. Last night's quiet standoff replayed in fragments, her silhouette, the unspoken bridge we'd half crossed. In the kitchen, Lena was already perched on a stool, cradling a steaming mug, her hair tousled from sleep. Wearing an oversized sweatshirt that swallowed her frame, she glanced up. Expression neutral, but eyes tracing my rumpled shirt. "Rough night?" she asked, voice light but probing. "Could say the same," I replied, pouring my own cup and sliding onto the stool opposite. We sipped in tandem, the silence companionable yet laced with undercurrents, the clink of spoons against porcelain echoing louder than it should, the fridge's hum a steady underscore to our mutual avoidance. Mom bustled in then, all efficiency and checklists, her overnight bag zipped and ready by the entryway. "Don't forget, we're off to Aunt Clara's surprise party in Eldridge. Won't be back till evening." Dad trailed behind, keys jingling, muttering about traffic. "You two play nice," he added with a wink, clapping my shoulder. Lena rolled her eyes, but her smile was genuine. As if we'd do anything else. They were out the door by 10, tires crunching gravel down the drive, leaving the house to exhale into stillness. No hum of family rhythm, just the two of us and the vast, echoing quiet. At first, we orbited each other like wary satellites. I claimed the armchair with a book I wasn't reading, pages blurring under distracted scans, while Lena sprawled on the rug with her laptop, fingers flying over keys in bursts of focus. The clock ticked mercilessly, amplifying every rustle, every shift. "This place feels bigger without them," she said finally, closing her screen with a snap. I nodded, setting the book aside. "Yeah, like it's holding its breath." That cracked the ice, a tentative bridge. We migrated to the back porch, mugs refilled, watching mist burn off the fields. Stories spilled out then, unhurried. Her burnout in the city, the promotion that tasted like ash, my stalled projects, the friends who drifted like smoke. Laughter threaded through the heavy bits, her elbow jabbing mine when I exaggerated a tale, my retort drawing that rare, unguarded grin. By midday, we'd unearthed the old board games from the attic, dusty boxes of Monopoly and Scrabble, relics from rainy afternoons. We dueled over properties and words, accusations of cheating flying amid roars of protest. You always were ruthless, I teased as she bankrupted my hotels. And you always folded too easy, she fired back, her knee bumping mine under the table. The touches accumulated. Innocent at first, a graze here, a playful shove there, until the space between us felt less like distance and more like invitation. Lunch was a collaborative disaster. Grilled cheeses that charred on one side, salad greens wilted from neglect, but we ate it on the floor amid crumbs, trading bites and barbs like nothing had changed. Afternoon blurred into a hike down the overgrown trail behind the house. The same path we'd blazed as kids, now choked with brambles and wildflowers. She led, as always, hacking at vines with a stick, her laughter echoing when I tripped over roots. Still got 2 left feet, city boy? At the clearing, we collapsed against a fallen log, sweat-slicked and breathless, the sun filtering through leaves in dappled gold. Conversation turned inward there, voices softening. You ever miss this? She asked, plucking at grass blades. Us, before everything got complicated. Their voices softening. You ever miss this? She asked, plucking at grass blades. Us, before everything got complicated? I hesitated, the weight of years pressing in. Every day. But seeing you now, it's like remembering why. Her gaze met mine. Steady and searching, the air humming with the unsaid, regrets over missed calls, the lives we'd built without each other. Back inside as dusk crept in, shadows lengthening across the walls, we foraged the fridge for dinner, pasta thrown together with whatever herbs Mom had drying on the sill, a bottle of Dad's homemade red unearthed from the pantry. We ate at the counter, forks clinking, wine loosening tongues. Remember that storm in '09? I started and she jumped in seamless, recounting how we'd fortified the fort with couch cushions, whispering fears until lightning felt like fireworks. The stories wove tighter, pulling us closer, until plates were pushed aside and we drifted to the living room, collapsing onto the worn sectional. A playlist hummed from her phone, our old mix somehow synced across devices, filling the room with echoes of youth. She leaned back, head tilting toward mine, our arms brushing in lazy alignment. You've got this quiet now, she murmured, eyes on the ceiling. Like you figured some things out. I turned, close enough to catch the faint citrus of her shampoo. And you're fire. Always were, but sharper. The words hung, electric, as the playlist softened to a slow ballad. Neither of us moved. Her fingers traced idle patterns on the cushion between us, inching nearer, until they ghosted over my knuckles. I didn't pull away. Instead, I laced them gently, the contact a spark in the dimming light. What are we doing, Lena? I whispered, voice rough. She squeezed, eyes locking with mine, raw, unguarded. Rediscovering, maybe. Or finally seeing. The night deepened, the house wrapping around us like a cocoon. We talked until words frayed into silences that spoke louder. Shared breaths, lingering touches, the slow unraveling of barriers time had built. When sleep finally claimed us, it was tangled together on the couch, her head on my chest, the steady rise and fall sinking like a forgotten rhythm. Morning would bring questions, the parents return a tether to reality. But in that suspended hush, with her warmth against me and the past bleeding into now, I realized the weekend hadn't just been a homecoming. It was a reckoning, a line crossed not in haste, but in quiet inevitability. And as the first light teased the horizon, I held her a little tighter, knowing we'd never quite go back. Not to who we'd been. Not without each other. The sun climbed higher the next day, indifferent to the shift in the air. Coffee brewed itself in the pot's automated gurgle, but we lingered in the haze of dawn, stealing minutes before the world intruded. Lena stirred first, murmuring against my shirt, her voice sleep rough. This feels dangerous. I traced her shoulder, the curve familiar yet new. Or right. Finally. We rose slowly, breakfast a quiet ritual, eggs scrambled with yesterday's herbs, toast buttered in companionable quiet. Tires on gravel announced the parents' return too soon, their voices a cheerful intrusion as bags thumped and stories of the party flooded in. We exchanged glances across the chaos, subtle, loaded, promising this wasn't the end, just a pause. As the day folded into normalcy, chores divvied and laughter masking the undercurrent, I caught her watching me again, not with the weight of last night, but with a spark of possibility. The house felt fuller now, alive with what we'd stirred. Driving back to the city that evening, her borrowed playlist on loop, I gripped the wheel a little looser. Home wasn't just the house anymore. It was her, the fire, the quiet, the US we'd almost lost. And whatever came next, we'd face it side by side, lines redrawn, stories unfinished. The morning began. Quiet, uncertain, and heavier than it should have been. Like we'd both woken up inside a memory neither of us had agreed to revisit. One that would cling to our skin long after we tried to wash it off. Elias didn't speak at first. He set the chipped ceramic mug down on the counter, the one with the faded lighthouse on it, and turned to face me. Our eyes locked. Something electric and jagged passed between us. Not rage, not quite, but the kind of current that makes your teeth ache. I stepped back from the kitchen doorway before the wrong words could spill out. The rest of the day dissolved into motion. I scrubbed the same counter 3 times, rewatched a cooking show I didn't care about, scrolled through photos I'd already deleted once. My mind kept looping back to him. By dusk, the silence had thickened into something you could lean against and feel it push back. We ended up in the living room, pretending the world hadn't tilted. An old cop drama flickered on the television, canned laughter crackling like dry leaves. Elias sat cross-legged on the rug, spinning a worn baseball in slow circles. I perched on the arm of the couch, pretending to read the back of a cereal box. Without warning, he flicked the ball at me. It thumped against my ribs. "What's your deal?" I asked, lobbing it back harder than I meant to. He caught it one-handed and grinned, crooked, boyish, dangerous. "You looked like you were drowning in your own head." "Yeah, well, come on," he said, rising in one fluid motion. "Still think you're faster than me?" I snorted. He lunged before the sound finished leaving my throat. We crashed together like 2 storms colliding. Elbows, knees, breathless laughter that tasted like panic. The coffee table skidded. A lamp wobbled. For a while it was just noise, release, the kind of violence we'd perfected as kids. Then his forearm pinned my collarbone to the rug. His pulse hammered against my skin. Mine answered in kind. We froze. The room narrowed to the heat between us, the rasp of breath, the sudden terrifying clarity of how close his mouth was to mine. Then he rolled away, breaking the spell before it could ignite. Neither of us spoke. I pushed up on shaky arms. "Shower?" I muttered. He nodded at the floorboards. Under the spray, I braced both palms against the tile and let the water drum against the back of my neck until my lungs stopped seizing. It wasn't anger. Wasn't guilt, not entirely. It was the avalanche of every secret we'd buried under years of distance and pretending. Later, we sat on the back steps. The night smelled of cut grass and distant rain. Fireflies blinked like faulty Christmas lights. Elias cracked 2 bottles against the railing and handed me one. The glass was cold, grounding. After a long pull, he said, "You've always been the exception for me." The words landed soft but detonated inside my ribs. "Meaning?" He shrugged, but the motion was careful, like handling something breakable. "When we were kids, I told myself it was because you were the quiet one, the one who noticed things. But it was more. You looked at me like you saw past the noise." I stared at the label peeling under my thumb. "I did," he exhaled long and slow. "I used to catch you watching. Not creepy, just cataloging. Like you were trying to solve me." Heat crawled up my neck. Was I wrong to? No. The porch light carved sharp shadows across his cheekbones. We were drowning back then. Expectations, the move, Mom's chemo. We built this island, just us, and never told anyone the coordinates. I swallowed. You were my exception too. Still are, maybe. He stood, paced the length of the steps, then stopped an arm's length away. Sometimes I think we're the only 2 people who ever bothered to read the fine print on each other. I didn't answer. couldn't. He closed the distance, hesitant like the air might bite. "Lena," he said, my name barely a breath. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't name it yet," he stopped, searched my face. "Then let this be enough." We stood inches apart, the night folding around us. Crickets, the low hum of the freezer inside, the faint metallic creak of the screen door. His eyes were darker than I remembered, older. "I've carried this for years," he said. "Me too. It wasn't lust. It was gravity, finally winning." He lifted a hand, rested it on the side of my neck, thumb brushing the hinge of my jaw. The touch was steady, deliberate. The kind that says, "I know exactly who you are and I'm still here." We stayed like that until the beer went warm and the stars burned holes in the dark. We didn't speak again. Just sat shoulder to shoulder, two people who'd spent a lifetime orbiting, finally allowing the collision. Inside, the house creaked like an old ship. We moved through it careful, brushing past each other in doorways, every accidental graze a shout. That night's sleep was a rumor. I counted the glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to my childhood ceiling and wondered which line we'd vaporized and whether the ashes could ever be gathered. Morning arrived, brutal and bright. Sunlight knifed through the blinds. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast and the particular bitterness of coffee left too long on the warmer. My hands shook pouring orange juice. In the toaster's reflection, my eyes looked bruised. Elias was already at the table, hair damp from his own shower, flipping through yesterday's mail like nothing had shifted tectonic plates under our feet. "Sleep?" he asked without looking up. "Fine," I lied. Mom bustled in humming, oblivious, asking if we wanted blueberries. Dad shouted from the driveway about a flat tire. Normalcy performed at gunpoint. Elias's gaze flicked to mine across the table. One heartbeat, gone. I spent the day folding laundry that was already folded, repacking a suitcase I'd unpacked 3 days ago. Every shirt smelled faintly of him, cedar and the detergent we'd shared since college. At 4:17 p.m., I found myself outside his bedroom door. I didn't knock. He was on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, fingers laced so tight the knuckles blanched. When he saw me, something in his shoulders unclenched. I stepped inside, closed the door with a soft click. The room smelled like the two of us, yesterday's rain, the ghost of teenage cologne. "This is insane," he said, voice scraped raw. "We're cousins," I finished. "I know. We can't keep pretending the rules don't apply. I'm not pretending anything anymore." Silence stretched, elastic. Then he reached for me. I let him. We met in the middle, foreheads touching, breathing the same recycled air. No clawing, no urgency, just the slow ache of recognition. His hands framed my face like I was something holy and breakable. "This is the last time," he murmured against my temple. I didn't answer, couldn't promise. Later, tangled in the narrow bed that had once held bunk bed wars and midnight confessions, I listened to the thud of his heart under my ear and tried to memorize the rhythm. Morning again. Suitcases by the door. Mom watering petunias that would die before next week. Dad arguing with the GPS. I zipped my duffel for the 4th time. Elias appeared in the hallway, hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes bloodshot. "Flight's on time?" "Yeah," he nodded. Opened his mouth, closed it. We didn't hug, didn't fist bump like we used to after pickup basketball. Just stood in the narrow corridor that suddenly felt miles wide. At the threshold, I turned. He hadn't moved. Sunlight caught the dust motes between us, turning them into slow-motion galaxies. His eyes said everything his voice wouldn't. "Stay. Go. Forgive me." "Don't." I lifted one hand, barely a wave. He mirrored it. The door shut with a soft snick that sounded final. On the porch, I paused, duffel cutting into my shoulder. The street looked exactly the same. Maple trees, cracked sidewalk, Mrs. Alvarez's obsessive topiary, and yet none of it fit anymore. I don't know what we are now. Cousins, exiles, keepers of a secret that hums under the skin. All I know is the weight has settled in my bones, familiar as marrow. If you've ever stood on the edge of something forbidden and realized the fall might be the only honest thing you've ever done, tell me, because I still don't know how to carry this without breaking.